Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para X.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the Para X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight, those listening in the chat room and those listening from around the world. We appreciate each and every one. Tonight we have with us Barbara Duncan.
Hello, everyone.
And speaking of people from around the world, where do we have listeners at tonight?
Tonight they're coming in from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Spain.
Good. All right. Spain's a new one. We haven't heard from them for a while. And we have with us Jeffrey Gould.
Hello.
And we have our wonderful guest, Devin Evans.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Glad you're with us tonight.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
So, I know you're with Shadow Hunters Paranormal, and that right now is a group out of where?
So they originally based in Illinois. They have chapters in Illinois. They have members in Wisconsin and now Ohio. And it seems like every month we're getting new members from getting even worldwide recognition. So I think through what we do on Facebook is we do nightly shows. We have nightly events Monday through Friday on our Facebook page. And then we have an active Shadow Hunters YouTube channel where all of our evidence goes to, and some of the other creative projects of our lead investigator, Nick Sarlo, gets placed out there on YouTube. So anyone who's interested in learning more about some of our past investigations, YouTube's going to be the place to go. There's like a wealth of information out there. I joined Shadow Hunters just back in October, though I had been doing some of my own independent investigations prior to that. So I had the privilege of joining them for an investigation, for the Rhodes Hotel investigation, and then was invited to join the team to start an Ohio chapter. And so this year I'm working on 2 different chapters, one for Shadow Hunters Paranormal Investigations and Events, and then we have a sister group or a sibling group for Psychics Unite. And everything that we've talked about tonight and promoting the growth and education and awareness of psychic abilities, that's what's really encompassed in Psychics Unite. So especially when I speak about scientific investigations and then having that sensitive insight into how to read energy and pick up information, that's the reason why I love both Shadow Hunters and Psychics Unite, because they just parallel that perfectly. So what's happened over the course of several years is we've had quite a relationship between the 2 organizations and work really well together with that. So the whole premise of Shadow Hunters is they are, we're working on creating unity and support amongst the paranormal investigation world. So we're actually trying to promote more support between teams and organizations. We're trying to maybe dampen a little bit of the you versus me in that industry. We want to be able to celebrate each other and watch each other thrive and succeed. And I think that that's an amazing concept for this industry, because I do think, especially when you're looking to present information that is new and profound, that it can sometimes feel like a race to get to to get to a new location first. or it can sometimes feel like a race to present your information first. And I personally come from a belief that there's enough for everyone. You can investigate one location 600 times and get a different investigation every time. And I think there's merit and benefit to that. So wherever we can actually support each other as individual teams from a place of mutual respect and kindness, I think the better it is for everyone involved. And that doesn't just support us, but it supports all of these individual business owners who have these beautiful properties that are helping support them in their lives and their families too. So it's actually a win-win when you look at it globally. You're able to provide that mutual respect to these locations, as well as other teams and spreading the word and sharing information. So I really love that about shadow hunters. That's the reason why I enjoy that. They're primarily open to receiving information from both scientific equipment as well as mediumship. They use that blend beautifully. And they do work to debunk their information and then only retain the things that they can't debunk. They provide information very accurately and grounded, in a grounded way that's professional. But they do it in a way that it's not shining a negative light on anyone else either. And that's very important to me. The beautiful thing about Psychics Unite and the whole purpose of Psychics Unite is, like the actual mission statement is to organize and unite people, both locally and globally, to advance the understanding and acceptance of psychic perception, sorry. So what I love about Psychics Unite is not only are they trying to educate people on what it might be like to have psychic experiences, all the different ways you can have psychic experiences, but they're also doing it in a way that's highly supportive, very respectful, and they're bringing in the science behind the little bit of science or scientific studies that have been done on psychic research. They're bringing that in, and they're bringing that awareness to tie that and ground that to, how our physiology on this earth ties into the other side. And I think obviously there's a huge opportunity in this area to learn more about this information. I think for some of the reasons we mentioned earlier in the show, people like to shy away from this subject matter. It's not taken seriously. In fact, if you try to take it seriously, you're often mocked. And so I think it takes a certain degree of openness and experience to be able to consider, okay, I'm willing to, put my doubts aside and say, what if? And the moment you just consider the what if, that's when you're able to start considering all of the different possibilities. I openly accept skeptics. I love working with skeptics. I don't want anyone to take my information for just as it is. I like them to kick that around within their energy field and see what's true for them. That's the whole reason why my weekly show on Thursday nights is called Truth Bumps, because I feel like we have that internal intuitive sense that when we hear some new information, we'll know whether that's right for us or not. And information can be right for one person and not right for another person. And guess what? That's okay too. We are globally in this place and domestically in this place where we feel like it's not okay to agree or to disagree, I mean. And especially when you're talking about spiritual concepts, I'm a big firm believer in taking what works for you and leaving the rest behind, because we're all in different. So imagine this is where my computer background is going to come in. Anyone who's, a reports programmer will know what a cube is, but imagine like a Rubik's Cube, only the little square pieces are trillions. That is kind of what it's like, the different degrees and varying levels of our experiences spiritually. No one cube is better than the other. There's not one that's more advanced or less advanced. Everything just is. But one person in a cube over here may resonate with a piece of information, while another person in a cube over here doesn't resonate with that. And that's okay. What trips me up, though, are people who are just very closed off to it. It doesn't really trip me up. It's just more like, well, there's no benefit in talking about this because you're not open to it, and that's okay too. There are, those out there that are very reluctant to entertain this information, or the possibilities behind it. And I always wish them love. In fact, I'm, married to one, so I definitely don't have anything against them. And it's proof right there that you can still live together and get along and love one another and have different belief systems. The thing about Psychics Unite is that it doesn't matter where you're coming from, what your belief system is, or what your experience is, or what degree you think your gifts are built out to. Whether you think you have gifts or you don't think you have gifts, we welcome everyone. It truly is a place to bounce ideas off of each other, to learn from each other, and to practice our gifts with each other if we choose to. It's not a requirement, it's not a mandate. We just enjoy having this fantastic supportive family where we can get together and talk about things that make other people uncomfortable sometimes.
I love the idea of the Rubik's Cube analogy as well, because it gives you a chance to shift the cube squares sometimes.
Exactly. And absolutely. And those things aren't linear. In reporting, well, in a cube scenario, you can go up, down, diagonally, across. You can jump over to another column. And that, I think, is pretty true, too, for our experiences in spirituality. And even within our paranormal investigations, like you might have a location that's been active for 10 people before you, and for whatever reason that night, it just shifted a complete column and it's just not that active that night. Or the opposite can also happen. That's why I'm also very open to, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad, there just is, and our perception of what is. And when we're open to perceiving the information that we're given in any scenario, then I think we broaden our perspectives around what possibilities could come. And then you start talking about, okay, well, how my thoughts are interacting with my reality. And we talked earlier about people bringing in negative energies and what that might be, why that might be, what's going on in our energy field. And then you start drawing these connections between yourself and your reality and the people that you're working with versus the people you're living with, the people you're crossing the street with. And you start seeing that there's more of a connection there and less coincidences even.
So when you go on an investigation with shadow hunters, is it most of the time these famous places like the roads and different areas like that? Are you in there with other groups also, or just the group you're with?
It's it's just the group that we're with. So I know some places will do like open investigations. They might have 30 spots open up around, especially around Halloween. That's very popular too. Like they'll have a 30 ticket event for a particular night, and you and 5 of your friends can go in, and then you're there with 25 other people that you don't know and just kind of investigating. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when we do our investigations that we're trying to collect evidence from, we really try and keep it to the teams that we comprise. Now, sometimes if within shadow hunters, that isn't, we don't have enough participation within our own group, partner with other groups and see if someone would like to do like a joint partnership, but it's still among friends. It might be friends that we have that normally investigate with another group, and so we're just kind of doing joint ventures and then compiling our data and sharing our experiences in that investigation. But usually it's with like this past one at the Old Baraboo Inn, it was just shadow hunters because we had enough participation in that. And then sometimes we just investigate locations that may not have like the grand accolades like the roads or Post Town or Old Baraboo Inn. We might do roadside investigations where there have been accidents or sightings safely, or cemetery investigations. We'll call those like little mini investigations. If we don't have a larger investigation planned, we might do a smaller one that just is for a few hours instead of over a weekend. I think we start to get a little itchy if too many weekends go beyond without getting out there and being able to try and collect some information and just be in that environment of paranormal investigations.
So roughly how many people would you have when you do something like that with them?
I think we have 7 at the roads, or 8. We had 8 at Old Baraboo Inn, and we don't usually go beyond 10. And 10 is a large group. So depending on the size of the location, we have to be cautious around how much space we have to work with, because you don't want you don't want to a lot of noises cross-contaminating your information, right?
Right.
And so we'll plan out, okay, let's do 3 people on the 3rd floor, let's do 4 people on this floor, the rest of us let's just listen for EVPs at the central hub, and then we'll switch people out as in shifts, and we'll know that during those time sets, like, okay, turn off recorders as we're moving around, let's get 5 minutes and put in place, and then let's get the equipment back up. And when I start doing investigations in Columbus, I'm actually going to try and do like more of like a journal and a log as the night goes on, so that I can say, okay, setup happened between 8 and 8:30, investigation officially started at 8:30, first round of investigations from 8:30 to 10, took a break from 10 to 10:30 and reset, that kind of thing, so that I can take that back and match it back with our equipment or with our evidence, and know that it's, you may not be able to take for face value any quote unquote EVPs that you pick up during a reset or a reshuffle, because you might just be picking up someone who's talking to someone else as they're getting put into place. This last weekend, I've gotten a couple of pictures where there was some things in the background. I was taking pictures on my phone, which has a really good camera, but also on an IR camera that offers night shot. But the light was so dim that even with the night shot that it was still kind of grainy. So I noticed that there were some aspects in the night shot that I couldn't quite make out what it was. And so I was looking through my phone to see if I had gotten better pictures to be able to debunk what I was, or prove what I was seeing in the night shot stuff. And then I'll take that back to other researchers and ask them, hey, this is the area of this room, and did anybody get any shots of this that I can bump up against mine? Those are some examples of how I like to personally try and debunk. And then in the end, if you just can't tell, you just keep that information to yourself. I would personally not want to present any information unless I was, very confident that what I'm seeing or hearing or sensing is what we perceived as real.
Okay, we got a wild question from the chat room, and it's kind of interesting. And that is, have you ever come across the ghost of an object? He says that he heard that a guy claimed a car was looking for its owner, and that it was just the sound of a loud car, but nobody could tell where it was coming from.
Oh, that's interesting. So, what I personally believe is that inanimate objects don't have souls, so I don't feel like they can actually haunt and stick around and haunt. But what can happen is a couple of things. One, that inanimate object has retained residual energy from an event, a person, place, or thing. And psychometry, the psychic ability of being able to pick up objects and read from them, is a prime example of that. Anyone who's into crystals and stones, and they're very sensitive to the energies of the different properties of crystals and stones, that's another great example. I think it's also the reason why you'll get a lot of experiences in places like historic castles that have a lot of stonework or brick buildings, because stone and clay and some of those materials from the earth have a tendency to hold that residual energy very strongly. So it's possible that there's that component there. We've all heard about like haunted dolls or inanimate objects that have retained information or residual energy. I do believe that that's a possibility. There's another thing that can happen called just residual energy. And so what that might look like is you might have a repeating scene every night at 3 a.m. Let's say someone who says, I see a door open, and then I hear steps going down the hallway, and then I hear a door close at the end of the hallway every night at 3 a.m. That might be a ghost. It might just be residual energy. If there's something in that space that happened that was pretty traumatic, it can cause this imprint in that space that will continue to affect the living and the space within it. So hearing like the loud sound of a car and maybe having, we have a lot of local legends around things like that. Again, Hollywood movies like Christine is an example where cars being haunted, that might also impact some of the experiences. I have no doubt someone's hearing like this residual phantom sound of a car. I think that's quite possible. But for it to be like a haunted car looking for its ex-owner, I think that's a little bit more difficult to get around because the car itself never had a soul. Even though sometimes it feels like it. Like I cried when my first car got totaled. I was like, oh, I named it and everything. And it was like, I'm never naming a car again. But, I think that's one of those things where it's really, it's a great idea just to bounce it up against your internal truth. Like, one of the simple things that you can do if you're looking to seek guidance from your intuition, any information you're getting, whether it's what you want to eat versus just the thing that someone just said resonate with me. One of the little things that you can do, I actually learned from channeler Lee Harris. It's called the body test. And if you just sit for a moment and close your eyes, take a deep breath to ground yourself, and then just notice your energy around your heart center and just see where it's at. If you've got two options, let's say apple versus banana, keep the apple in your mind and see how your energy in your heart center shifts, and do that, 30 to 60 seconds. Just focus on the apple and breathe through that. And then switch your perception to the banana. How does the banana sit with you? You'll notice that your energy feels different between the two options, and one should feel more light and maybe a little bit more high, like higher up in the vibration. That's a really good thing that you can do anytime that you're trying to bounce across any energy. So like if you're hearing someone talk about an urban legend or a possible you know, story that just sounds kind of outlandish, you can always do that simple little body check to check with yourself to see, hey, is that really a possibility, or is this just something that kind of spun out of control?
So, places that you have investigated, either with a group or just you and one or two other people, um, do you prefer like going to the big box places to do an investigation, or are you looking for small place, uh, private residence, or a place where it hasn't been overdone investigating, you might say?
I love both experiences because they do provide different, because you do get different things out of both. So I have I have never investigated a private residence yet, but I would love to. I mean, outside of my own, like maybe not my own home, but going back to childhood homes and things like that. Um, Private residences, you just got to be a little bit more selective because you're never quite sure what you're going into. And I do think that, if you definitely got a good, strong psychic with you or a medium, you can kind of feel that out and sense what might be coming up in that investigation to determine whether you're going to accept it or not for a private residence. But as far as like the big named ones versus small no named ones that haven't been really investigated, I love doing both. I look at the as part. So let me rewind it a little bit. One of the things that we as investigators, whether you're using abilities or not, I think one of the things that we sometimes struggle with is believing what we're seeing or hearing. And sometimes it's really easy with an EVP, but sometimes it's not, right? Like you could really chuck that sound up to that was just background noise. Or do you want to take the time to slow that down and break that out and see if there's actually something else there deeper to it? So I like having both of those experiences because it allows me the freedom to say unequivocally, this is what I experienced. These were the messages I got. These were the people I saw. These were the dates and the names that I picked up. A friend of mine, before I joined Shadow Hunters, actually it was about a year ago. Oh my gosh, it was a year ago this weekend. We actually drove out to Gore Orphanage Road. And there's no real one singular location to investigate in Gore Orphanage anymore. It's just kind of like this general stretch of land. But I was picking up information all around. Like, so we went up the road past the area, I was getting information. And as we were approaching the area, I was getting information. And there was this one beautiful little old-fashioned church with a historic cemetery next to it. And we decided, since it wasn't too far from the location, we would stop in the cemetery and just respectfully look at the tombstones or just get a general feeling and just be there. You know, it only took 5-10 minutes. But I kept hearing, the two sensations that I kept getting was there was someone who they just thought they were so stupid. They were like, how stupid could I be? I can't believe I was so stupid. I was so stupid. And I got that very strongly. And then I kept hearing a train whistle. And I kept thinking, oh my God, it's so stupid that I would think there's a train around here. There's no trains around here anywhere. And as I'm going through this and I'm getting ready to share, so what my friend Heather and I would do, she would pick a location and research it and not tell me anything about it. And then we would go out there and test my abilities and see what I would pick up to see what it was crossed against her research. And so I'm like, Heather, I don't know why, but I am just kicking myself for hearing this train and for thinking there's a train around here. I really am so frustrated with myself that I would even think this. And she's like, because in the cemetery, and I forget the gentleman's name, I'm sorry, but there was a well-to-do man who had property in the area, had a farm, had lots of money, had claims, and he was looking to make an investment. And somebody actually persuaded him to invest all of his money into the railroad that was supposed to happen in that area. And then it never did, and he was destitute and they lost everything. And so when I have experiences like that I know I didn't make up, there's no way that I would make up train whistles and that strong sensation of what was I thinking kind of thing. And it actually bumps up against the research that someone has done independently of what I'm picking up. That to me is an amazing piece of experience that I'm taking with me, and I'm using that to help me refine and tailor other investigations with electronic pieces of equipment as well.
And that's interesting when you can research the history and the background of a place. I've been doing the Preble County Historical Society, which is an old farm, and they haven't allowed anybody to go in there to investigate, and they called us in to do it, and we was in there just one night. Mark and I was sitting downstairs, and my son went upstairs, and he wasn't up there 15 minutes, and he come down. He said, "Dad, you gotta go upstairs." He said, "I hear this little kid talking to me. It's real soft, and I can't make it out." Anyway, when he had to go outside for a little bit, but he left his recorder up there running, and me and Mark went upstairs, never got anything. But later, when we was listening to the recorder, after he come downstairs, you hear this kid say, "Come back." The kid was wanting them to talk. Well, when we talked to the curator and everything, she said there's never been kids here that we know of. And she started doing research and come to find out the woman, after her parents died, she'd been a school teacher in Eaton. And after her parents died, she had to come and work on the farm. And because they didn't have a lot of help, she went to the orphanage and got kids to come out and stay there on the farm from the orphanage and help work. And these people never knew that there'd ever been kids there.
Wow, that's incredible. See, and that's where, especially anyone who's just starting out with their abilities, always try, you always want to discern, but don't disbelieve the information that you receive, because even if someone's like, "No, that can't be possible, there's a reason why you receive that information. And I do believe that we get the messages we do for specific reasons. Like, I'm getting messages that my other friend, Jen Hodgson, psychic medium, is not getting, but she's also getting messages that I'm not getting. And it's all because of the match between our energy and the location, and just the reason why we're receiving the certain messages that we are supposed to be able to tell others. I think that's fantastic. I love that. I love that story. I remember at our convention where we met last September, I had the opportunity to investigate in the, it was in the old Post-Town Elementary, and I had the opportunity to investigate the upstairs just for a minute. And I was allowed to go into the doll room, and immediately a little girl in a blue dress had approached me, and she was very excited to show me which dolls were her favorites. And she was just following me around and being very sweet. And then in this room, the walls are covered in chalkboards, and everyone who gets to visit there signs their name. And so I went ahead and I signed my name. And I heard distinctly, "Oh, I like that name. That's a very pretty name." And then over the next 10 minutes while I'm in that room, she would lead me to a side of the room, and I'd look up and there's my name again. And then she'd lead me to another side of the room, and there's my name again. Now, my name's not uncommon, but it's not common either, especially with the Devin spelling, because there's O-N-E-N, I've heard Y-N, and each one of these names that she showed me were Devin. And I just thought that was the cutest thing, that she was like, look at all the other Devins that are here. And that's not something I would have even thought to do. And literally, I would just walk to an area looking at the dolls, and I'd be compelled to look up in front of me, and there it is, right in front of my eyes. I love children.
Yeah.
Now, do you counsel people to keep, like, similar to a dream diary, to maybe have a thoughts and impressions diary when you walk through a place?
I think that's a fantastic idea, Barbara. I've actually never thought of that, but I think I'm going to start adopting that. I love that idea, and here's the reason why. I believe there's a reason why I spent so many years thinking that the messages in my head and the voices in my head were just in my imagination. I think I was meant to receive that experience so that I could help others understand that it's not their imagination. And I'm a big proponent that, especially if you're getting into your abilities, the moment you start acknowledging that you do get messages, then that opens the door that opens the door a little bit more to receive more messages and more messages. And the more intimate you can get with what you're receiving and what you're experiencing, the more you're going to receive, and that's how our gifts grow. What I love about the idea of like in a thoughts and impressions journal, because I also am a big proponent for dream journaling, but a thoughts and impressions journal, sometimes in the moment when we get a message, we may not always understand right away why we're getting that. And then later on down, like I'll often get a message maybe up on the third floor of a location, and then it's not down until we get into the basement. Then I'm like, oh, like this last weekend, I was up on the third floor and I got the strong impression of a hanging. I'm like, oh, okay, there was a hanging somewhere. But not this room, and I didn't get any more information on it, so I just kind of tucked it away. And then what I had come to learn when we were investigating the last floor, there was a hanging on that floor. So I think it's important, it's very beneficial to be able to kind of map out and document what you receive, because not only can you kind of refer back to that and prove, oh, hey, look, we're learning about this hanging in this EVP on this floor, and 30 minutes ago or 3 hours ago, I documented it on the third floor. It may not be anything related, but it could also be too, because I don't necessarily believe in coincidences. I think it just is another tool to help you get intimate with yourself and your experiences, and it gives you the opportunity to really practice that level of discernment on what you're picking up.
Well, it's also, if you go back later and do any more historical research, and then you thought, oh, okay, that's where that came from.
Exactly.
That.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I love that idea.
Well, you guys seem, even with the COVID, you have been going to different places investigating. I have not done anything since the end of 2019. This whole year with COVID, I have not done anything. And not looking forward to try to do things with the COVID. So I'm hoping that we get something settled with it before too long, because I have been wanting to at least get out around here and go to places and stuff, but I haven't been able to.
Exactly. And, our investigations have definitely been few and far between. Like literally we did the roads and then Preble. And then outside of like one shots individually here and there, that's pretty much what we've been done. So we've been very selective. We're always very careful in our investigations. We really try and do the 6 foot social distancing. We require masks at all of our locations, and adhere to proper hand washing standards. And we've been very lucky. We understand that there are risks, and we have, some people on the team don't don't participate with everything that's going on right now, which is totally understandable. But those of us that, are okay with investigating with proper guidelines in place, and we have the option and the ability, we've been very fortunate that all has gone well. In fact, this last location, we were supposed to have an investigator come with us who we were leaving Saturday morning, and that Friday night he had to call and cancel because just that day his wife had been in the same office area as someone who had tested positive.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that was very unlikely that anything would happen with his wife or with him. Everyone thought that it was, he wanted to stay behind, and we thought that was the best idea too.
Yeah.
So,
So the question, I guess, aside from cemeteries, do you investigate outdoor areas, haunted fields, woods, anything along those lines?
yes, we do. A lot of the impressions that I got at Gore Orphanage was actually just in a field, and of course it was during January of 2020, before everything went down with COVID. But I was able to pull in a little off pass just for a few minutes, and just get some impressions from there as well. But yes, anywhere that there have been reportings, or anywhere we feel like might be a hot spot, we're definitely open to it. And I think, was it for Halloween? Some of the local investigators in Illinois had gotten together and did a socially distant, there was only like 2 or 3 investigators, but they had done a socially distant investigation in woods at midnight on Halloween. It's kind of like a celebration, but they were getting so much activity off the REM pod out in the plain woods. It was really impressive. So yeah, I love, as long as you can do it safely, and there's no real concern of trespassing, woods, fields. And I've been doing research for to start setting up investigations once COVID gets a little bit more stabilized. And I feel like by mid-year to the fall, we'll start to see better numbers with that. But I'm starting to do research here in Ohio locally for our chapter here to do investigations, and there's lots of trails that there are reports of sightings and sensations, especially along like the Scioto and Olentangy River. And of course, water has that quality where it can, similar to stone, it can kind of like energize and electrify any residual energy, or ghosts can kind of feed off of that energy and really amp up their experiences. So I'm totally open to outdoor investigations. I would even love one area that I know just a little bit about, but not very much, is I would even love to start doing investigations for cryptids, and all the different little earth type spirits that might be lurking around, and see if you can get any information or evidence off of that for those investigations too.
Any particular cryptids in mind?
Are they called not boggins? That's the little, what are they called? They're down, I think, in Kentucky, but they're like little 3-foot.
Puckwudgies?
Yes, thank you. I don't know.
A puckwudgie,
Boggins or a scary movie monster. Sorry. But yeah, the puckwudgies. I would like to. I guess you've got to be careful, because some of the stories I've heard is that they're not necessarily benign, and if the puckwudgie is part of like the fairy realm, and I know now we're getting into like some really fringe stuff. I mean, what's fringe from psychic abilities? But here we are. But if puckwudgies are part of that like earth elemental spirit fairy realm, then I do think that there are some some truth to like the Irish lore around fairy realm. So be careful of gifts and be careful of like please
Take into account, one of my cats' name is Puka.
Oh yes, 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 the pukas. I love it. And that's funny because I do believe like animals tend to take energetic qualities of the names that we give them. Like I used to have an all-white cat named Spectre, and he literally would disappear before my eyes and reappear over here to my left side. It was so funny, but I love that. Yeah.
There was a meme about there are sites that give sort of like suggestions for writers to like an idea, and one of them posted a cat that teleports around, and you turn around and there it is, and people were just replying, but that's just any cat.
That is just any cat, yes.
They're always teleporting, like, what? Where'd you come from?
You were just here, and now you're over there. Yeah.
Right.
I used to have alongside Spectre, my all white cat, I had an all black cat named Milo, and he was like a spirit guide. He like an earthbound spirit guide, honestly. Anyway, there was one night, I'm a big scary movie fan. I just love them. I can't get enough of them. And one night I was watching scary movies at like 1 a.m. by myself with the lights out. And we had just celebrated her birthday, and I could see my kitchen from there. And on the other side of the island was a helium balloon from the birthday celebration. And I'm just watching this scary movie, but out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching this helium balloon go up and down and just start moving and moving and moving and moving. And I'm like, am I seeing this? Is this like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And as it's starting to move, it's getting to the end of the island, and it actually turns the corner. And I'm like, I cannot believe I'm seeing this. I'm getting really freaked out. And slowly but surely, that helium balloon comes into view. And here's Milo at the end, just carrying it in his mouth. It was like, oh, okay. It's just my cat. All right. Perfect. So, yeah.
Well, our time has just been running right on by. And did we have any last question in the chat room, Barbara?
We did, and that was a question from Coffee, and wants to know if you've ever been contacted by a living person mentally.
Oh, so I'll be brief because I know we're running out of time. But what usually happens when that shows up, one of two things. All of a sudden, I will just feel pulled to give someone a call, like my father, my brother, my best friend. And when I call them, they'll be like, oh, I was just thinking about you.
Oh.
And I think that happens to a lot of people, even when they don't have like psychic abilities. That happened to me just yesterday. For like 5 days, I'd been thinking of my friend who's actually out in California, Jeff. And I was thinking about her really hard. I called her a couple weeks ago, and I didn't want to badger her, so I didn't call her again. And finally last night she called me, and she was like, I've been just thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about you. And I'm like, well, I can't stop thinking about you. So here we are. So I definitely, you can have those experiences with the living. I think it shows up more like that type of scenario where you'll just get pulled to reach out to someone. And like, how did you know I needed to hear from you?
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight, and very good show, and a lot of information with it. I know everybody in the chat room was just thrilled. I mean, they were just listening intently, and of course we did get a lot of questions from them also. But what I'd like for you to do is give out all your information where they can contact you and follow you, and when you get done, just stay on till after we're off, and then we'll thank you.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's been a pleasure. You can find me at devinevans.com. I'm also Devin Evans Psychic Medium on Facebook. You can see my Facebook page there. On Instagram, I'm Divine Medium. That's spelled Devine Medium. And that's also my handle on Twitter. So those are all the ways that you can find me, and then just generally lurking in the atmosphere. You can try and reach me through meditation.
All right. I'll thank you after we're off and everything. Barbara, you got any last things?
No, everybody stay safe, keep masking, wash your hands, and keep the social distancing.
And next week we have with us Thomas Wortman, who hasn't been with us for a while. So going to be a lot of good information from him with that. Jeff, you got any last thing?
Have a great week. Stay dry and warm.
All right. Until next week, this is Henry Foister.
Jeffrey Gould.
And Barbara Duncan.
We'll see you next week at the same time. So good night, everybody, and stay safe. And by the way, we now have snow outside. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal